AI leadership is starting to feel less like a traditional tech roadmap and more like a weather forecast,
Yeah.
You refresh the screen and suddenly that great model decision you made last week, the one you sunk time into,
Yeah.
it just looks a little, well, naive.
That speed is exactly it. That intensity is why we can't just treat these releases as, another update on a leaderboard. For every single person listening, if you're a developer or a team lead or just trying to keep up, the real question is always the same.
And it's an expensive question.
It is. Does this jump in performance justify switching everything? My subscriptions, my prompts, my entire automation pipeline?
And that is our entire mission today. We're going to try and translate these big abstract claims from the GPT-5.2 release into actual actionable decisions for you. We want to get past the academic trivia stuff and really look at the numbers that measure economic output, time saved.
And that has to start with the biggest, splashiest number of the whole release, that 70.8% winner tie score on something with a GDPval.
Okay, let's break that down, because we've all been there, right? Begging an AI to just give you a clean spreadsheet or a presentation deck you can actually send to someone without spending, 2 hours fixing the formatting, that 70.9% is a claim that part, the cleanup, is shrinking a lot.
And what's so fascinating about GDPval is how it's designed. It's not a test of, memorized facts. It's an evaluation built for economically valuable work. We're talking about tasks across 44 different professional jobs. The model has to produce real things. A sales presentation, a complex accounting spreadsheet, a manufacturing diagram.
So they aren't grading it on a multiple choice quiz. They take the AI's output and a human professional's output, and they hand them to actual engineers or analysts and just ask, which one would you rather use to get your job done?
Exactly. And that design is so crucial because it rewards the things that actually save you time. Things like clear structure, correct assumptions, sane formatting, and just, a result that feels done enough to ship with a few light edits. That 70.9%, it's fundamentally a claim about usability, not just raw intelligence.
And that's what makes this feel like a real turning point. Are they actually saying this model's output is often as good as or even better than what a paid professional creates?
They are. GPT-5.2 is the first model to break that 50% barrier against human pros on this evaluation. And to really put that 70.9% in perspective, get this. The previous model, GPT-5.1 Thinking, its score was just 38.8%.
Wow, from 38% to over 70. That's not an incremental step. That changes your whole relationship with the tool. It goes from being a sort of frustrating assistant to something more like an expert partner.
I think so. And the key insight is how it's evaluated. A flashy, confident answer that gets one tiny detail wrong. It loses to a careful, complete answer. The whole framework penalizes what I'd call confident slop.
Which is exactly what you need for a daily work partner. Reliability over flashiness.
And if we connect that usability idea to the bigger picture, this release really formalizes a new hierarchy. It draws a sharp line between 3 different kinds of AI work, which is critical for how you should be thinking about your budget.
A new hierarchy based on what the model is intended to do, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
You've now got 3 clear tiers. First is the instant variant. Fast, low latency, good for quick drafts. Second, you have the thinking variant. This one is slower. It's for reasoning first work, things with multiple steps. And then third, there's a pro tier. This is a premium service where accuracy is the entire point. You use it when you just can't afford to be wrong.
And when you look at that huge benchmark table they released, it's easy to get lost in the decimals. But for most of us, we should really be focusing on what you could call workflow benchmarks.
Absolutely. Beyond GDPval, you should be looking at things like SWE-Bench, which is about agentic tool use, and MCP Atlas. If your team works with spreadsheets, support tickets, automations that use multiple tools, well, those are the rows in the table that predict real-world value. They show the model can actually talk to other systems without just falling apart.
But while those workflow scores are key for operations, the academic scores do tell a pretty amazing story about its raw reasoning power, especially in areas where older models really struggled. Let's start with advanced math.
The AIME 2025 score is it's stunning. Both the thinking and pro models hit 100.0%. without any external tools. For comparison, GPT 5.1 was at 94%, and Gemini 3 Pro was at 95%. So they've basically just eliminated the ceiling on those kinds of math problems.
A perfect score. I mean, that's not just a nice to have. That's a guarantee that things like complex financial models or engineering calculations should just work.
Right. But I think the more important number, the one that hints at the future, is in abstract reasoning. There's a massive jump on a test called ARC-AGI-2. This suggests much better fluid reasoning.
Okay, let's define that. Fluid reasoning. What does that mean in practical terms for someone using this?
Think of it this way. Crystallized intelligence is knowing facts. Formulas, stuff you've memorized. Fluid reasoning is being able to solve a brand new logic puzzle you've never seen before. It's about connecting unrelated ideas on the fly. It's the engine for real, non-memorized creativity and problem solving.
And what were the numbers on that test?
The new thinking model hit 52.9%. That is a colossal leap from GPT-5.1's 17.6%.
A 17 to a 52.
Yeah. And the Pro model gets up to 54.2%. That fluid reasoning is what you need for new complex workflows that require, actual invention, not just pulling from a database.
So the main takeaway is still about value. The best AI model is just the one that reduces your team's total human cleanup time, period. And to figure that out, you really have to understand these three different models.
Because picking the wrong one is the most expensive mistake you can make. Speed can cost you a fortune in correction time down the road.
So let's start with GPT 5.2 Instant. Where does that fit in?
Instant is your low-latency workhorse. It's for quick first drafts, summarizing an email, that kind of back and forth you do in a meeting. It's fast, it's responsive, and for simple stuff, it's cost-effective.
But the big warning is you can't be tempted to use it for complex, multi-step tasks just because it feels fast. If you do that, the failure rate goes up, and you end up spending hours fixing its mistakes. And that's when you should be using the thinking variant.
Right. GPT 5.2 Thinking is the slow down and get it right option. It's built for structured planning, long documents, and tasks that use tools. It's been trained to sort of think before it answers, which makes it much more consistent, especially with messy or ambiguous instructions. If you're building any kind of internal tool with business logic, this is the one you want. It just behaves better under pressure.
And then you have Pro. GPT 5.2 Pro, the premium tier with the very premium price tag. And I think it's important to stress, you're not paying for better vibes or bragging rights here. You're buying down risk.
That is the perfect way to frame it. Pro is for when failure is not an option. Think regulated compliance decisions or a high-stakes customer-facing automation, a workflow where a big mistake would be a disaster. That extra fluid intelligence is only worth the cost when the cost of a miss is higher than the price of the tokens.
Okay, let's talk about where that value really shows up. Coding. AI demos that write a simple function are everywhere. The real pain is when a model tries to fix a bug, but it changes the wrong file, and now your whole system is on fire.
The metric to watch there is SWE-Bench Pro. It measures if a code patch actually passes the tests and integrates correctly. The thinking model gets a 55.6% on the public set. That's a solid jump from 50.8% on the last model.
So what does a 4.8 percentage point jump actually mean for a dev team?
It means time saved. It means if you're trying to fix 10 bugs with AI, you're getting almost one more clean working fix right out of the box. That's one less review cycle, one less pipeline run, one less hour a senior developer has to spend debugging an almost solution. It shows a much better respect for the existing code.
And there was a lot of talk about gains in front-end work, too. Getting the basic structure is one thing, but getting complex layouts and state management right is the really hard part.
Yeah, the release notes specifically call out its strength in complex front-end tasks, unconventional UI, even 3D elements. For anyone building products, that could be the difference between a prototype you throw away and something your senior designer can actually work with.
And for anyone building larger systems, there's a really critical security piece here too, right?
Absolutely vital. Agents often have to read logs or error messages, which can contain hidden adversarial instructions, prompt injection. The system card reports big improvements on their evaluations for that, especially around function calling. And that's crucial if your agent is allowed to do things like, run deployment scripts.
Which brings us right to agents. The big frustration with agent systems now is just they're so brittle. Too many moving parts, too many things can go wrong.
That's the engineering nightmare, isn't it? The concept of agents is brilliant, but when you have 5 sub-agents trying to hand work off to each other, the whole thing just breaks. The new tool use benchmarks suggest a path forward.
Right, we're looking at scores like Bench Telecom at 98.7%. That's really reliable.
Extremely. These high scores suggest the model can handle a very long, multi-step workflow with tools without getting lost. Combine that with the better reasoning, and it opens up this idea of a mega agent. One very capable core model, a clean tool interface, and way fewer moving parts.
So the hidden benefit isn't just better results, it's that you can actually delete entire chunks of that brittle orchestration code you had to maintain. That's pure savings.
But now, of course, we have to talk about the elephant in the spreadsheet, the API pricing. This is where people pull out their calculators and take a deep breath. The increase is significant.
It is. The thinking model is $1.75 for input, $14 for output per million tokens. And Pro is way higher, 21 grids input and 168 output. That price jump is going to cause some meetings.
And in that meeting, they're going to make the wrong choice if they only focus on cost per token. The metric has to be cost per finished, acceptable task. If we go back to that 70.9% usability number, an expensive model that gets it right on the first try will always be cheaper than a cheap model that takes 5 tries and a human review.
Right. Because the truly expensive part isn't the API call. It's the 2 hours of my time spent fixing the cheap model's sloppy spreadsheet. I've wasted so many hours on that.
We all have. So the rule for teens has to be instrument your retries. You have to track how many attempts it takes to get an acceptable result. Only then can you actually calculate the total cost of your time plus the tokens.
That reframes the whole pricing table. It's not about which vendor you like. It's a clear financial calculation.
Yeah.
You have to measure the friction.
It's non-negotiable for any serious deployment. Now, we should shift to another area of tension, safety and censorship. Every big release brings up that nanny AI concern. People want fewer refusals, but they also demand safe systems.
A tricky balance to strike. What does the system card say about refusals?
It notes that the instant model is a bit more permissive with mature content, specifically sexualized text. It tries to distinguish between, say, benign content for creative writing and actual harm. It's a subtle change, but it's aimed at content creators. It doesn't change anything about core disallowed content.
So if you're writing a novel with adult themes, the instant model might be less obstructive.
That's the idea. But for anyone building products, the strict guardrails are still very much in place for things like self-harm, violence, illicit acts. All of that is still blocked with very high accuracy.
Let's circle back to a metric that's crucial for agent builders. It's all about trust. The deception rate.
This might be the most impressive safety number, actually. The system card says the thinking model reduced its deception rate in production from 7.7% in the last model all the way down to 1.6%.
That is a huge reduction, a much lower chance of the model misleading you or making up fake citations. For any autonomous system, like a financial agent, that's a massive increase in trust.
But the conclusion isn't to just trust it blindly. It's simple. Don't panic, but you absolutely have to monitor.
Good agent design always assumes occasional failure. You still have to validate citations, require human confirmation for irreversible actions. You have to manage the risk.
Exactly right.
So after all that, what's the final verdict? Is it time to switch? Should you ditch what you're using?
You have to treat this like an engineering decision, not like you're picking a favorite sports team. The answer comes from 3 tests you have to run in your own environment. 1, if you ship code, test it on your own internal bugs. Measure the time to merge, the number of retries, the amount of human review it takes.
2, if you do research and writing, judge it on a long, complex document that you actually care about. See if it stays coherent and if its citations are accurate.
And 3, if you run agents in production, you have to prioritize reliability and simplicity. If a stronger model lets you delete brittle orchestration code, that's an immediate win.
Okay, so here is the one actionable next step you should take. Pick 3 recurring tasks from your workflow. One that's heavy on spreadsheets, one on coding, and one that uses a lot of tools. Run them with the same checklist on your current model and on GPT-5.2.
The answer to should you switch will become obvious. If GPT-5.2 reduces your total human cleanup time, even with the higher token cost, then it's worth it.
And if this performance level, this 70.9% number, really means you can offload that first draft of work and trust it more, it fundamentally changes the job description for your most expensive people.
It absolutely does, and that leaves you with the real question for this week. If the AI partner is doing that first draft and doing it well, what's the next organizational skill you need to build to take advantage of all that new human time?